Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. So we talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host, Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Now, Spencer Sanders, the former Oklahoma State quarterback, has decided to transfer to Ole Miss. Now, I'm going to go over Spencer Sanders' decision to transfer to Ole Miss and whether I think it was the right decision. Now, Spencer Sanders has been Oklahoma State starting quarterback for a few seasons, and he's had a lot of success at the Cowboys under Mike Gundy. And they had a really good season in 2021, but they definitely took a step back in 2022 this past season. And I think that's part of the reason why Spencer Sanders has decided to enter the transfer portal and go to Ole Miss. Plus, it's his last year of college football, and a lot of quarterbacks who have been at the same school for a long time, especially with the extra year that all the quarterbacks have been given due to the 2020 virus. It makes sense for a lot of these quarterbacks to go to the portal and go to a new school for their last season of college football before potentially heading to the NFL. But should Spencer Sanders have left Oklahoma State for Ole Miss? I'm going to break it down. Now, you look at Spencer Sanders' statistics at Oklahoma State. In his first season, 2018, he redshirted as a freshman. And then in 2019, he became the starting quarterback, and he led him to a 7-3 record as the starter. And he was 155 of 247 for 2,065 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. And he had over 600 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. And he did pretty well in his first season as the starting quarterback for Oklahoma State. His touchdown to interception ratio wasn't the best. But besides that, it was a very promising first season. And then in 2020, he was a starting quarterback for Oklahoma State again. And he led him to a 6-3 record. And he was 155 for 247 for 2,007 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions, and over 200 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. So almost the same statistical season as the year he had before, but with fewer interceptions. But both these seasons, he played fairly well overall. But then in 2021, Oklahoma State had a breakout year going 11-2. And Spencer Sanders had a fantastic year, throwing for 243 of 392 for 2,839 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and he had over 600 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. And you look at his touchdown to interception ratio, again, it wasn't the best. Spencer Sanders does have a tendency to throw a decent amount of interceptions, but he did lead Oklahoma State to an 11-2 record, and they had a great season overall. And then in 2022, Oklahoma State did not have as good of a season, but Spencer Sanders still led the Cowboys to a 7-3 record, and he was 212 of 368 for 2,642 yards, 17 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and he had over 300 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns on the ground. And Spencer Sanders had a really solid career at Oklahoma State. He threw for 67 touchdowns and 40 interceptions overall. And even though Oklahoma State was not as good this past season, Spencer Sanders could have come back for another year at Oklahoma State and been the starting quarterback for sure, because even though he did throw a decent amount of interceptions every season while he was at Oklahoma State, he was always a starting quarterback, and I don't think there was any way that Mike Gundy would have benched Spencer Sanders. So he could have come back for his extra year and had another pretty solid season at Oklahoma State before going to the NFL draft. But Spencer Sanders decided to enter the transfer portal and go to the Ole Miss Rebels to potentially play in the SEC and maybe put up some big stats, and that would help better prepare him for the NFL. A lot of quarterbacks do that, where they want to go to an even bigger level to help prepare them for the NFL, and the SEC is the best conference in college football in most years. So I think that Spencer Sanders going to Ole Miss could potentially benefit him if he puts up great numbers and has a really good season at Ole Miss. But the only negative for Spencer Sanders about transferring to Ole Miss is whereas at Oklahoma State, he would have been the starting quarterback for sure in this upcoming year. At Ole Miss, there's going to be competition for the job because Jackson Dart was the starting quarterback for Ole Miss this past season. You look at his stats. When he was at USC, he was 117 of 189 for 1,353 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. But then he transferred to Ole Miss after that offseason, and he went 8-3 as a starter at Ole Miss this past year and was 171 of 283 for 2,363 yards, 16 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. And he had a really good season overall for Lane Kiffin. Those aren't the biggest numbers in the world, but they're fairly comparable to what Spencer Sanders did at Oklahoma State. So even though it would appear that Spencer Sanders would have the advantage to get the starting job at Ole Miss, it's not going to be a guarantee that he gets the starting job over Jackson Dart. So he's going to have to compete for the job. But again, Spencer Sanders could look at it that him competing for the job can make him a better quarterback. And if he won the job at Ole Miss and had a really great season, it could help him in the NFL. But he also has another quarterback that he's competing with as well. A really young quarterback transfer from LSU and Walker Howard, a former big-time recruit. He's decided to transfer to Ole Miss as well. So you have 3 quarterbacks that are potentially going to be challenging for the job in 2023 with Spencer Sanders, Jackson Dart, and Walker Howard. And that's assuming that Jackson Dart does not enter the transfer portal. So again, it begs the question, should Spencer Sanders have transferred from Oklahoma State to Ole Miss? If you look at it from the perspective of him being able to play at the highest level in college football and be able to prepare for the NFL draft and to have competition for the quarterback job at Ole Miss would be able to give Spencer Sanders a lot of experience. And if he wins the job over Jackson Dart and Walker Howard, then that would be a great look for him. And if he had a really great season at Ole Miss this upcoming year, then that would help Spencer Sanders out as he prepared for the NFL draft after this upcoming year. But if he had stayed at Oklahoma State, he would have already had the starting job guaranteed. He was familiar with that system, and he's been Oklahoma State starting quarterback for all those years. So the familiarity there might have helped him out for this upcoming year, even if Oklahoma State did not have a great season again. But at Ole Miss, if he wins the job, he might be able to win more and be able to better show the NFL that he is a capable quarterback and that he's ready for the draft. But you can look at it either way on his decision to transfer from Oklahoma State to Ole Miss. I think at the end of the day, overall, as long as Spencer Sanders wins the quarterback job at Ole Miss, which he should, I think that it will end up being a good decision for Spencer Sanders in the long run if he has a great season at Ole Miss to help prepare him for the NFL draft. But if he doesn't win the job or he does struggle at Ole Miss, and it probably would have been better for him to stay at Oklahoma State. But overall, I think that Spencer Sanders made the right decision as long as he wins the quarterback job and has a great season for Ole Miss in 2023. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think Spencer Sanders should have stayed at Oklahoma State or he made the right decision to transfer to Ole Miss. And I will see you next time.